Je constate qu'il y a quorum.
We have quorum.
3A. As the clerk of the committee, I will preside over the election of the chair and vice chair. Je dois informer les membres que le greffier du comité ne peut recevoir que des motions pour l'élection.
We can only receive motions to elect the chair. The clerk cannot receive any other motion and nothing on call to orders.
106.2. The chair must be a member of the government party. I am ready to receive motions for the chair. Monsieur Garon.
J'aimerais proposer comme président.
I would like to nominate the Honorable Karina Gould.
Right. Seeing none, je vais maintenant soumettre la motion.
I will now submit table the motion to the committee. Mr. Garon nominates Karina Gould as the chair.
Donc, je déclare la motion adoptée.
I declare the motion adopted. Ms. Karina Gould is now the chair of the committee. I invite Ms. Gould to come to the chair's seat.
OK. Bonjour tout le monde, mais merci beaucoup pour...
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your support. I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
I invite the clerk to preside over the election of the vice chairs. Sommes tous d'accord? OK, merci.
Does everyone agree with that? Thank you.
Sorry about that. Pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the first vice chair, must be a member of the official opposition. Je suis maintenant prêt à recevoir des motions pour
I will now receive motions for the first vice chair.
Miss Kubina.
I would like to nominate MP Jasraj Halan.
Il est proposé par Madame Kubina.
Ms. Kubina nominates Jasraj Halan as a co-chair or vice chair.
Seeing none, I will now put the motion to the committee. It has been moved by Ms. Sandra Kubina that Mr. Jasraj Halan be elected as first vice chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion? Yes? Agreed. Je déclare la motion adoptée.
I now declare the motion adopted. Mr. Halan is now elected as vice chair of the committee.
Conformément à l'article 106.2, le second vice-président doit être un député de l'opposition provenant d'un parti autre que celui de l'opposition officielle. Je suis prêt à...
I am ready to receive motions for the second vice chair.
I know it's a slightly easy decision with the bloc, but I will say that Jean-Denis and I have worked together on past committees, and I have found him to be a fantastic partner, not always obviously agreeing on issues, but I think he will make a great vice chair, so I would respectfully and humbly nominate him to be the vice chair for the bloc.
All right. It has been moved by Mr. Ryan Turnbull that Mr. Jean-Denis Garon be elected as second vice chair of the committee. Y a-t-il d'autres motions?
Any other motions?
Seeing none, I will now put the motion to the committee. It has been moved by Mr. Turnbull que Monsieur Jean-Denis Garon soit élu second vice-président du comité.
It has now been adopted. It is moved that Mr. Jean-Denis Garon be the second vice chair. Is the motion adopted?
C'est adopté et Monsieur
Motion is
Jean-Denis
adopted, and Mr. Jean-Denis Garon is elected second vice chair of the committee.
Okay, well, congratulations to the two vice chairs. Looking forward to, again, working with all of you. Thank you. Thank you. I think. Welcome to meeting number 1 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Before we begin, I would ask all in-person participants to read the guidelines written on the updated cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters. You will also notice a QR code on the card which links to a short awareness video. La réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroule sous...
Today's meeting will take place in a hybrid format. I'd like to remind participants of the following points. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. I will ask members to raise their hand if you'd like to speak. The clerk of the committee and I will do our best to maintain consolidated speaking order.
Tous les commentaires doivent être adressés.
All comments should be addressed through the chair.
Committee, we can proceed to the consideration of routine motions? Yeah, okay. The committee clerk has circulated a list of routine motions that the committee adopted in the last parliament. A draft, okay, has a draft of routine motions. As a reminder, a motion must be moved by a committee member. It is easier to consider the routine motions one by one. Oh, sorry, that's not for me. I understood. Okay. Mr. Turnbull.
So I'm going to read one by one the routine motions to the record. Analyst services, that the committee retain as needed and at the discretion of the chair the services of one or more analysts from the Library of Parliament to assist it in its work. Should I go through all of them, Chair, or would you like to do them one at a time?
I think one at a time, yeah. Okay, sounds good. Is everyone in agreement with this? Yes, correct? Okay, please proceed.
Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure, that the Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure be established and be composed of 4 members, the chair and 1 member from each recognized party as designated by each party's whip, and that the subcommittee work in a spirit of collaboration.
Are we in agreement? Okay, and if you don't mind, I'd like to invite the analysts up, please. Thank you so much. Please continue, Mr. Turnbull.
Brief point of order, if I may. So we're adopting, that is, you're asking for consent to adopt the motion. I'm just being clear.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay, good, thanks.
All right, meeting without a quorum. That the chair be authorized to hold meetings to receive evidence and to have that evidence published when a quorum is not present, provided that at least 4 members are present, including 2 members of the opposition parties and 2 members of the government party.
Do we have agreement? Yep. Okay, merci.
Okay. Travel, that when traveling outside the parliamentary precinct, A, the meeting begin after 15 minutes regardless of whether quorum is present. B, no substantive motion may be moved during such meetings.
Do we have agreement? Okay.
Okay, time for opening remarks and questioning of witnesses. That witnesses be given 5 minutes for their opening statements, that whenever possible, witnesses provide the committee with their opening statements 72 hours in advance, that at the discretion of the chair during the questioning of witnesses, there be allocated 6 minutes for the first questioner of each party as follows. First round, Conservative Party, Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois. For the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning be as follows. Conservative Party 5 minutes, Liberal Party 5 minutes, Bloc Québécois 2.5 minutes, Conservative Party 5 minutes, Liberal Party 5 minutes.
All good? Okay.
Okay, I'll continue. Document distribution. That only the clerk of the committee be authorized to distribute documents to members of the committee and only when the documents are in both official languages, and that all documents submitted to the committee in both official languages that do not come from a federal department, members' offices, or that have not been translated by the Translation Bureau be sent for linguistic review by the Translation Bureau before being distributed to members, and that the witnesses be advised accordingly.
D'accord? Okay, merci.
Working meals. That the clerk of the committee, at the discretion of the chair, be authorized to make the necessary arrangements to provide working meals for the committee and its subcommittees.
Yes, oui, okay, pas de...
Travel, accommodation, and living expenses of witnesses, that if requested, reasonable travel, accommodation, and living expenses be reimbursed to witnesses not exceeding 2 representatives per organization, and that in exceptional circumstances, payment for more representatives be made at the discretion of the chair.
D'accord? Okay, merci.
Access to in-camera meetings, that unless otherwise ordered, each committee member be allowed to be accompanied by 1 staff member at an in-camera meeting, and that 1 additional person from each House officer's office be allowed to be present. That during in-camera meetings, committee members may be informed by the committee chair of the MPs who have been designated as substitutes for permanent members in order to know which MPs are authorized to speak and vote during these committee meetings. That only those who have been recognized and identified as such be authorized to speak in keeping with the usual agreed rules of order and decorum.
Yep, okay.
Transcripts of in-camera meetings. That 1 copy of the transcript of each in-camera meeting be securely retained by the committee clerk for consultation by members of the committee or by their staff, and that the analysts assigned to the committee have access to the in-camera transcripts.
Okay, in agreement, thank you.
Okay, notice of motion. That a 48-hour notice interpreted as 2 nights be required for any substantive motion to be moved in committee unless the substantive motion relates directly to business then under consideration, provided that A, the notice be filed with the clerk of the committee no later than 4 p.m. from Monday to Thursday and no later than 2:30 p.m. on Friday. B, the motion be distributed to members and the offices of the whips of each recognized party in both official languages by the clerk on the same day that said notice was transmitted if it was received no later than the deadline hour. C, notices received after the deadline hour or on non-business days be deemed to have been received during the next business day.
D'accord? Parfait.
Okay. Orders of reference from the House respecting bills. That in relation to orders of reference from the House respecting bills, A, the clerk of the committee shall, upon the committee receiving such an order of reference, write to each member who is not a member of a caucus represented on the committee to invite those members to file with the clerk of the committee in both official languages any amendments to the bill which is the subject of said order, which they would suggest that the committee consider. B, suggested amendments filed pursuant to paragraph A at least 48 hours prior to the start of clause-by-clause consideration of the bill to which the amendments relate shall be deemed to be proposed during the said consideration, provided that the committee may, by motion, vary this deadline in respect of a given bill, and C, during the clause-by-clause consideration of a bill, the chair shall allow a member who filed suggested amendments pursuant to paragraph A an opportunity to make brief representations in support of them.
Are we in agreement? Yeah, okay.
Technical tests for witnesses, that the clerk inform each witness who is to appear before the committee that the House Administration Support Team must conduct technical tests to check the connectivity and the equipment used to ensure the best possible sound quality, and that the chair advise the committee at the start of each meeting of any witness who did not perform the required technical tests.
In agreement?
Whips access to digital binders, that the clerk of the committee be authorized to grant access to the committee's digital binder to the offices of the whips of each recognized party.
In agreement?
Maintenance of order and decorum, that during meetings, the chair, if necessary, uses his or her prerogative, I should say her prerogative, to suspend the meeting to maintain the order and decorum necessary to ensure the application of the House of Commons policies on workplace health and safety.
In agreement? D'accord. Mais merci beaucoup, Monsieur Turnbull.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. As the chair's prerogative, I'm just going to suspend the meeting for 5 minutes to speak with the clerk, and we'll return to business in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. come back. Thank you very much. Yes. Mr. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. First, Chair, congratulations on your new role. Since we're in committee business, as you said before we suspended, I wanted to move a motion.
Point of order, Chair. Just before.
So,
So I
Point of
don't
order.
think I actually said that yet.
I believe you said something along those lines before we suspended.
Point of
so-
order, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Turnbull.
I just wanted to clarify before Mr. Helen, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I would appreciate just to clarify, are we in committee business, Chair? Because I don't think Mr. Helen is able to move a motion if we're not in committee business.
On the point of order?
So if you just give me a moment, I'm going to suspend for a moment to confer with the clerk to
Okay.
determine. Thank you. Think I said that specifically, but I did say something loosely. I will formally ask committee members if they want to move into committee business at this point in time. Yeah, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, but
No.
if I may still, on the point, which I'm not sure, well, we were in fact passing committee business. The meeting was called, we elected a chair, and then we, as chair, you immediately entertained a series of motions that are committee business. I think it is clear that we actually are conducting committee business at this committee meeting.
Okay, I will confer with the clerk and get back to you in a moment. Okay, well, so I had asked the committee if we wanted to go to routine motions, which was with regards to the organization of the committee, and hadn't yet opened it up for future business relating to the committee. And the committee had agreed at that time to discuss organizational business. However, I will ask the committee right now if we do want to move to any additional items for this committee meeting, and we can have a conversation about that. So do we want to open up to any further committee business?
Okay, I move that we move to committee business.
Okay. All right. So we will put this to a vote then. Thank you.
And the question is, shall the committee move to committee business? Mr. Turnbull?
No.
Mr. Liteo?
No.
Mrs. Sawatsky?
No.
Mr. McDonald,
No.
Mr. Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Kobina, Mr. Lefebvre,
Yes.
Mr. Garon,
Oui.
Okay, based on the results of the vote, we are moving to committee business. Mr. Hallen?
Since we're moving into committee business now, I'd like to move my motion. So, that given that Canadian families and small businesses have to budget before they spend, and given the economic uncertainty facing Canada, that it be reported to the House the committee calls on the Minister of Finance to table a budget before Parliament closes for the summer. And we do have this on notice to the clerk with both official languages. This Prime Minister said he was a man with a plan before the election and during the election. We heard that multiple times, but it turned
Point of
out
order,
that was
Chair.
not true.
Yes, Mr. Turnbull?
My understanding is that committee business is conducted in camera.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. There's another point of order, and then I'll confer with the
Ma compréhension,
On
c'est qu'on
point
n'a
of
pas
order.
reçu encore du greffier la version dans les deux
We
langues.
have not received from the clerk the version in both languages, and as a francophone, I cannot actually appreciate this motion.
Madame la Présidente, le courrier vient d'arriver.
The email just came in, Madam Chair.
Oui, le greffier a...
Indeed, the clerk just sent the email.
The committee can take place in this way unless it's of a secure nature. So, thank you. Turning to Mr. Hallen.
I'll continue. So once again, this Prime Minister before and during the election multiple times said he was a man with a plan. He said he had some type of plan to get this country back on track, but after helping over the last 5 years as Justin Trudeau's main economic advisor to cause the worst inflationary crisis in Canadian history, with the most rapid interest rate hikes in Canadian history, that all along the way supported a consumer and an industrial carbon tax that went up every single year, that made the cost of food go up every single year, that forced more and more families to go into the food banks, in fact, doubling food bank usage in this country, making the rate of inflation on food go up faster than any other country in the G7, making more and more Canadians go into insolvencies because they doubled the cost of housing. This is the same Prime Minister over the last 5 years that caused all this pain and misery. And then he turned around and said he had a plan. But a budget is a plan. And first he said there would be no budget. And then through conservative pressure, they said there would be a mini budget. And now supposedly we're supposed to have a full-on fall budget, but the families that are 1 in 4 that are skipping meals, that are standing in food bank lines, they can't wait for that. Canadians are desperate to know what the state of Canada's finances are after this government has already promised, this Prime Minister has promised that he's already going to spend more than Justin Trudeau. In fact, the total debt on Canadians today is around $1.27 trillion. And this Prime Minister has promised he's going to spend more than Justin Trudeau right away with about $600 billion in new spending. Canadians need to know what's going to happen to their taxes. They need to know what's going to happen to Canada's credit rating with all this expenditure. We all know that under this Prime Minister's advisory, they drove out around $600 billion of good Canadian investment to other places, mostly to the U.S. Under this government's watch, this Liberal government, now more than ever, unemployment is up. It's at 7%. Youth unemployment is up. There's no jobs for the youth that are graduating, so a lot of them are moving out. Newcomers are living in their cars. They're living under bridges that we've heard of. It doesn't sound like a first world country anymore after 10 years of the Liberal government. And now they've refused to present a budget to Canadians that would be clear and transparent on what way and what direction they're going to take their government. They put up anti-energy laws like Bill C-69 that doesn't let any new pipelines get built. what Canada desperately needs is to become an independent energy superpower. And with that bill in the way, no mines are going to get built, no pipelines are going to get built, no big infrastructure can get built. And we've seen that. That's why investment has been fleeing out of Canada. Bill C-48, yes, we can take our product to the West Coast, but it can't go anywhere. And those are markets that are desperately need Canadian energy. The world needs Canadian energy, but this Liberal government wants to make sure that our product stays in the ground, and other dictatorships are the ones that are benefiting from that, and the environment doesn't benefit in any way, because clean, low-carbon energy can come from Canadian energy, because we have the best economic standards.
I believe that the bells are ringing for a vote, and we don't have unanimous consent to continue, because I think many of us want to go up to the House to vote.
Saved by the bell.
Do we have unanimous consent to continue? No. We do not. Okay, so this... Do the members want to come back after the vote? Yes, they do. We have unanimous consent to come back? No? Okay. All right. Well, then we want to come back. Great. So we are suspended for the time being then. Thank you. We'll see you after the bells, or after the vote. the vote. Mr. Hallen, I believe the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chair. So as I was saying, the Bill C-48, the tanker ban, which lets our resources get to the West Coast, but we can't sell it to any markets off of that coast because of the ban itself. The industrial carbon tax, which needs to be removed to make Canada more competitive on the world stage. Not to mention our low carbon energy is at the highest environmental and human rights standards probably around the world. And it's something that we should be proud of. But again, this Liberal government is set on keeping that our good product in the ground, enabling more dollars for dictators and less powerful paychecks for our people here in Canada. And not to mention the job-killing oil and gas cap, which according to Deloitte could cost 110,000 good-paying Canadian jobs. So this attack on our energy sector over the last 10 years by this government shows how unserious they are. So it is Canadians that are asking for a budget this spring. They cannot wait until the fall. And what Canadians are asking for in that budget is for a plan to unlock our energy industry, to unleash our resources, get rid of some of those anti-energy bills that this government brought in. What they're asking for is to control the cost of living, this out-of-control inflationary crisis that this government created, where food prices are the highest in the entire G7. They're asking this government to bring some common sense policies, or adopt ours, in fact, that would actually get homes built in this country. And of course, that also includes control the government spending so that interest rates don't go up, caused by inflation. As I said before, this new Prime Minister wants to spend more than the old guy, Justin Trudeau, and he was upfront with that on day one, which could make inflation and interest rates go up. Canadians also want in this budget, they want crime under control. Under this government, with their soft on crime policies that brought in Bill C-5 and C-75 that gives repeat offenders easy access to bail. And what we see in this country is Canadians are scared. They're scared to be at home in their cars. They're scared to send their kids to school alone. This country is not safe anymore because of the soft on crime policies by this government. Those two bills need to be repealed. Canadians are saying that now under this government, criminals have more rights than victims do because it's the repeat offenders that are easily getting bail. We need to keep repeat offenders in jail and not give them bail. And we see across this country extortions up more than 300% because Canada has become a safe haven for criminals and those that are committing extortion. And lastly, Canadians want to see a plan for immigration. The Bank of Canada said that it was the population growth under this government's out-of-control population growth that was contributing more further to the housing crisis. And so, you know, the Liberals they expanded the population growth in order to get more votes. But Canadians are suffering without proper services. There's not enough jobs. And there's not enough homes because new home starts have gone down under this government. Not to mention housing costs have doubled. So even newcomers are not able to survive. I came here as a newcomer, so did my family. And back then, you could live off of one paycheck. It's just not the same anymore. Canada is not the same country anymore. That's what we keep hearing all over the place. So we need to restore what Canada used to be. It used to be a place where your hard work could earn you a powerful paycheck that could afford affordable housing and affordable groceries. And you could have those things living in a safe neighborhood. That was the Canadian dream, and that is a Canadian dream that needs to be restored. That's why now more than ever, Canadians need a budget from the Liberal government now in the spring before the summer starts so that there's some assurity that this Prime Minister who said he had a plan actually shows that he has a plan. So once again, we are calling on this Liberal government to release a budget this spring to give Canadians some assurity that they can live in that Canada that we once used to know and still love. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hallen. I have Ms. Kobina next.
Thank you. So it is my understanding that this Prime Minister values private sector practices, and in that light, I would like to share, as a professional, as a finance professional of 14 years, if I was to pick up a file with where I see that the revenues are going down, the expenses are going up, there is no forecast, no budget, no plan, and not only that, the funds are being requested in a very short timeline, that would be an immediate decline. And further to that, it would be a referral to the financial restructuring team, particularly given a history of consistent deficits, poor management, particularly given the tight timeline. If anybody was reviewing a file like this, it would, I think everybody would think it's some sketchy business. And so with that, I am very concerned that there is no desire to put a budget forward this spring. I think it's highly irresponsible, particularly because we have an affordability crisis, and I don't think it's a very complex concept to think that you cannot spend your way to affordability. That is very irresponsible. So when we cannot be borrowing to fund affordability measures without the benefit of a budget, that's exactly what it looks like, because we are not seeing any reduction in spending. We are only seeing a reduction in revenue, and despite the fact that there's a lot of moving parts in the economy right now, where there's instability, but that's exactly why we need a budget. We need to adopt this basic private sector practice of preparing a budget before we spend. I have not seen any responsible manager go off and prepare a list of expenditures before even considering what you have in terms of revenues. So any measures of affordability, as I see it at this moment in time, would be funded by borrowing. And that is like going grocery shopping with your credit card, but you're going to pay more later because there is an interest. And right now, with the $486 billion of spending that is being requested, that spending will go on the national credit card, and the interest is mounting. That is poor management, highly irresponsible. We need to respect taxpayers' dollars, and because of that, we need to see a budget. We need to see the flow of funds, the revenues, expenses, and what the real plan is. We cannot be playing with words and saying, oh, yes, we have a plan, but we're going to keep you blindfolded until we actually spend the money. And, yep, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Kubina. I now have Mr. Turnbull.
Thank you, Chair. And it's great to be back in committee with so many colleagues. And I know this is our first meeting, so it's important that we have gotten set up. And congratulations to you, Chair, and congratulations to the vice chairs. Look, I think it's a bit unfortunate that we're starting out this way, given the fact that we have C4 legislation to consider, which I think should be the priority, as is the formal practice of most committees on the Hill when the government has, and I want to acknowledge that we seem to have done a good job of standing all together in voting for C4. I believe it got unanimous consent, or it got the support of all members of the House of Commons that voted, and it's great that it's now in committee. I think, so it's a bit unfortunate that we're sort of spending a lot of time debating a motion, but that is the prerogative of members on the committee to bring forward motions. So I totally understand that they're able to do so. I certainly would prefer that we had an in-camera session to consider committee business where we could put all of the potential motions that each party has to study on the table and come up with a schedule for the fall that would have us using our time very efficiently and effectively to get our business done. I know all of us appreciate, being elected members of Parliament. We want to use our time. Time is the greatest resource that we have. It certainly is important that we use it effectively, that we value each other's time, and that we work to get things done. And I know that C4 offers considerable tax relief for Canadians at a time that I know that they need it. And I think we can all agree on that. That's how members have voted in the House, so I know that we have their support. Now, I know this motion speaks to the desire that the Conservative Party has for an immediate budget, which I find interesting, to say the least, given the fact that their leader, Pierre Poilievre, who no longer has a seat in the House, but who would not commit in his 100-day plan to submit a budget. So it's interesting that there's always seems to be, or often seems to be in my 6 years on the Hill, or just under 6 years on the Hill, to be a double standard with the Conservative Party and its members, because if the election had have turned out differently, I'm sure that they would not be tabling a budget within the timeline that they would set out for the government. So, or at least there was no commitment to do so, which would indicate that there was no desire to do so or no willingness to do so. Now, I mean, I would say we just came out of a federal election.
I don't know. This point of order is directly related to the member's comments, Mr. Turnbull's comments, and the fact that he's actually putting things on the table that are, in my opinion, directly not true. Budgets are budgets, and every party committed to putting a budget on the table in the House of Commons, and Mr. Turnbull cannot say that my party did not.
Mr. McLean, I believe that's debate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's not a point of order. I know that the standing orders are quite specific about points of order. But the veracity of a claim, the member is certainly, Mr. McLean, is certainly able to contest the veracity of a claim that I make on the record at any point when he has the floor. But until then, I would appreciate just being able to finish providing my perspectives and thoughts, as is my right, which is protected under the standing orders, as the rights and privileges of members of Parliament to speak their mind in all parliamentary proceedings. So listen, I was starting to say that we just came out of a federal election. The House has only been back for 3 weeks. We've tabled some, I would say, some very big pieces of legislation, making some huge leaps forward on behalf of Canadians. All of the things that the government is currently implementing were part of our platform and were disclosed to the public in advance. We received a mandate from the Canadian people. We formed government. I understand that other members form the opposition parties respectively. They're obviously going to hold us to task, and I appreciate that at all times. But I also think that there needs to be a reciprocity here in terms of understanding that, well, we formed government with a mandate from the people and a clear plan and platform, which is a fully costed platform, which was voted for by the Canadian people. So, and we have confirmed numerous times that there will be a budget in the fall of 2025. Now, I would just remind members that Brian Mulroney, who unfortunately passed away, who was a very honourable member of Parliament and quite a good Prime Minister. I certainly looked up to him. I met him once and had, I think from my perspective, he was a very good progressive conservative leader. And he did not table a budget for 300 days. So just think about that. He earned all of our respect. He was a great Prime Minister. All of us can acknowledge the work that Brian Mulroney did. I should say the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney. but he did not table a budget for over 300 days. That's not to say that budgets shouldn't be tabled, but it is an informal practice. There's no actually statutory requirement, as far as I understand, to table a budget within a number of days. There's an importance to budgets, but they're not the only way that governments express their plans. So the Conservatives keep saying we don't have a plan. Well, we do have a plan. We have a platform that was disclosed to the public that Canadians could scrutinize. And in fact, when they looked at that plan, they voted for us. They put us in our seats. And by us, I mean the Liberal Party members that formed government. Granted, minority parliament, a few seats short of a majority, but a strong mandate for a minority government nonetheless. And certainly, we are implementing that plan. So I would suggest that a fall budget is what we've committed to. It's what we will deliver. And I think there's a real importance to forming that budget with having budget consultations. And Chair, I had hoped today that maybe we would have some informal discussion with a real collaborative tone and talk about how the committee might work together to do pre-budget consultations leading into the fall, where we could obviously have the runway that's needed to formulate a budget that really reflects where the country is at and where we see the country going. And so I don't want to diminish the importance or the role that a budget plays. It certainly plays an important role. But it is not the only tool for expressing the government's plan by any means. And, so listen, I think what I would suggest, I have some other thoughts, but what I would suggest is an amendment to MP Halland's motion, and it reads as follows. So, that the committee calls on the Minister of Finance to table a budget. I think that simplifies it. I think it gives the essence of what every member here could agree to. I think it would get us to a point of consensus, which is always what we try to achieve at committees. Is getting as close to consensus as possible. And I know that that my colleagues will have thoughts on why a budget is important, and certainly with the commitment to doing that in the fall, I'm sure that all committee members would happily agree to this amendment. So thank you very much, Chair. I'll cede the floor.
Okay, thank you, MP Turnbull, for that, and thank you for proposing that amendment. Is there anyone who would wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you. And with the amendment, in fact, I'm not certain if it's in order. It changes the meaning significantly. I would argue that the very point of the motion the main motion is to table a budget before Parliament closes. That's an essential element of the main motion. But be that as it may, I've got the floor. I've got some remarks on that are going to, I guess, would address either the amendment and the main motion. But if you've ruled in order, then we'll just continue. But the look, this government campaigned on the urgency of our time, the multiple crises facing Canadians, many of which were 10 years in the making from the current government's tenure, and then refused to table a budget. So that's why we had called on them to table a budget before we rise, and so I will oppose the amendment and vote for the main motion. But in absence of a budget, all we have are the main estimates that this government has tabled: $486 billion in budgetary spending with no budget. So almost $500 billion in budgetary spending with no budget. If the budget is not tabled until, say, November, we'll be about 20 months without a budget at a time of crisis wherein the campaign, the other party campaigned on a media budget. Past governments, including the former Conservative government, tabled budgets very quickly after elections. This is something that is ordinarily done, and so in absence of a budget, we can merely just look at these estimates, $486 billion, and compare them to, say, last year's main estimates. And in that comparison, it is revealed the extent to which the government is not governing in accordance with the platform and the promises made during the election, because they are allowing additional bloat to the size of government. The size of the government has expanded 40% in the tenure of this government, and the main estimates can indicate that is even getting worse. Also, the use of private contractors, which has increased. So I would argue that I would hope actually that we would be able to defeat the amendment, pass the main motion. I would call upon Liberal members of this committee to vote in favor of the main motion. They campaigned on a platform of a plan to deal with the crises of this moment. And so I would hope that Liberal members would want to put pressure on the government to do the right thing and to table their budget so Canadians know how they're going to finance, how they're going to pay for, what taxes are going to have to increase in order to fund the spending that is clearly is increasing as a result of these main estimates. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Monsieur Garon.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Of course, the amendment is coming from the Minister's parliamentary secretary, which means that it is pretty much coming from the Minister themselves. They were nominated or elected in January, and there was only one thing for him to do, that was to prepare a budget. We know that the Minister makes a lot of announcements and doesn't really finish what he started. If there are some estimates, that would be great. The story of Brian Mulroney is just a justification to not present a budget. I see Mr. Carlos Leitao across from me, who is Minister of Finance in Quebec, and he tabled a budget every year. When Brian Mulroney was elected, I was 2 years old, and this is the only example that they were able to come up with. That happened in 1984. At that time, we had public servants nominated by the Liberals. No one here has come back from the previous legislature at this committee. We did, however, change some very good ministers, or lose some very good ministers. Right now, what the Liberals are saying, this is the buzz, this is what they're angling for. The Conservatives are saying that they will vote for the Liberals' propositions because they won the election. The Conservatives are cherry-picking what they agree with, points that have no bills or anything, things that Mr. Turnbull would have voted against months ago as an environmentalist. But now, all of a sudden, all of these amendments are used in order to subvert democracy. And now we don't have any witnesses. We don't have any proper work done. Everything is done rush. There was a plan in the electoral platform made by the Liberals. But now there are bills that are being tabled in order to bypass due process. Why don't you have a budget? How do you say cherry picking in French? The Liberals decided that they would just cherry pick what they like. For example, there was supposed to be $20 billion of counter tariffs. We're happy that there are less. Of course, this means that that things are going well. If we haven't had to do those counter tariffs, those $20 billion, which were supposed to help our local industry, they've taken that money and they are funding tax cuts. I'm not necessarily against tax cuts. It has to be studied. But here's the reality. The Liberals are unable to budget to balance the books or to keep their promises. They are doing a reform of sorts, which looks exactly what has been done in the UK, which makes sense because that's where the Prime Minister has worked. They don't have any provinces over there, for example. So any transfers to provinces right now will actually increase the deficit. I see Mr. Turnbull looking at the time. I have 6 minutes. These transfers that will help us build hospitals would make the deficit larger, but, building a military base or hospitals could be amortized on 20, 30 years. The work that the Liberals are presenting right now is poorly done. That's why the minister has been lying to the House, but he is also unable to tell us how he is going to fund the budget. I called a point of order at this last week.
In the House, and that is a direct violation of the
Je
rules
retire
of
mes paroles,
decorum.
Madame la Présidente. Je voulais seulement souligner le fait que j'avais à la Chambre
I take back what I said. I just wanted to highlight what happened at the House last year. There was a point of privilege, and I explained to the Speaker that on the tax credits, there was a lie on the part of the minister. I didn't go into detail for just for time's sake, but I appreciate that my colleague is asking me to follow decorum. So the Liberal platform is not an act. This is not a parliament. It is not balanced. And if the Liberals want to table all of their platforms at once, let them do it in the House. But if they want to cherry pick and tell us that what the government's friends like and what the oil and gas like can be tabled right now, and that we can table tax cuts without knowing how we're going to fund them, and then later have, some sort of a financial reform that will actually hide and mask what things are really like. I don't agree with that. Last I checked, Brian Mulroney never called an election. There were fixed elections. Of course, that's not a constraint, but that principle was not respected by the Prime Minister. But this election was called in order to table a budget. The minister keeps saying, he keeps repeating these lines. He keeps saying, oh, the world has changed. The world has changed. He has mentioned it every 10 minutes during the election. He's against some oil and gas projects. He's for some of them. He's against the carbon tax. Now he's for it. Or it's always changing. But things have not changed enough for a budget not to be tabled. They don't know how they're going to balance the budget. They don't know what they're going to include in it. I think that we need a budget as soon as possible, or at least some main estimates with a bit of an update in order to include various points. The member opposite is preventing me from hearing myself, and I know that I have a voice that projects. Well, we already appreciate you very much, Madam Chair. Here's the reality. The Liberals are afraid. They should right now make an update on estimates and tell us what they're going for. It should be immediate. I think this is an issue that pertains to our democracy. On to Mr. Leitao. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You won't be surprised that I agree with my colleague's amendment, and I'll explain why. There are many reasons. I would start by saying that a budget is indeed very important. It's so important that we have to take the time to prepare it properly. As the colleagues from the Conservatives have asked, it makes no sense to table a budget within 4 days. The budget is important. We will take the time it takes in order to table the budget to the Canadians, but not more time than we need. But we certainly can't do it in a matter of days. Why not? For many reasons. The main reason is that, indeed, as mentioned by my colleague from Mirabel, a budget was presented quickly after a provincial election in my past life. But today's context is completely different. Right now, we are going through a lot of uncertainty due to cavalier and counterproductive actions by our neighbor and biggest trading partner, the United States. To rush ourselves would have been imprudent. The colleagues have been insisting for days that we table a budget a bit too rapidly. So yes, we will table a budget in the fall. I don't know exactly when, but there will be one. And we will indeed address all of the questions that have been raised. One of the things that my colleagues from the Conservative Party have repeated is the issue of inflation. I've said this before in the House. The inflation that started in 2022.
Chair, are we speaking to the amendment, or are you ruling it in order or out of order right away? Are we speaking to the actual motion now?
They are speaking to the amendment. And
So the amendment's been raised. He's not speaking to the amendment at all. He's speaking to the motion. So the motion, your ruling should be now, in my opinion, Madam Chair, whether this is an acceptable amendment to the motion or whether it undoes the intent of the motion itself.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Could the member stick to the amendment at hand? Thank you.
Certainement, Madame la Présidente. Donc, l'amendement, c'est que le budget soit présenté.
The intention is to present the budget, but a little bit later. I wonder why. We are insisting on tabling the budget in the fall because it would otherwise be imprudent to rush the process in just a few days. We cannot do that. That would call to order, or rather point of order. My understanding is that the meeting is now over and we don't have UC to continue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Hallen,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Madame Cobina, Mr. Lefebvre,
Oui.
Monsieur Garon.
Oui.
That's 9 yeas, 9 pour. Okay, after that vigorous debate and point of orders, I move to adjourn this, or we are adjourning this meeting. Thank you.